had much time to prepare, so it's kind of seat of the pants, but it doesn't seem too complicated.
No problem. Steve, just so you understand, Wendy will not be in attendance. We asked Jana to sit in.
I understand. Good. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you.
So it's kind of seat of the pants, but it doesn't seem too complicated.
I'm waiting for the go ahead.
Starting webinar now. You are good.
Good morning, everybody. First order of business for this meeting is the approval of the minutes from the February 2nd meeting, I believe. There were several additions were addressed by Wendy, I know. I would make I made the comment that the shed at 481 is pretty much the size of a garage, and I understand they're withdrawing, so it's a moot point. I made the comment at 251 North, what was that? 251, Becky's redo of that house and garage. I thought it was a tremendous improvement, but I didn't think that the metal roof on the front porch was as attractive as regular shingle. Any other correction or addition?
No.
Okay. I move to approve as presented.
I second it.
Abstain.
Okay, so motion by King, second by Childs. King,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. 65 West Washington.
It's being slow. I'm trying to get her over.
All right.
Anna, have you followed this at all? The corner house at 65 West?
I'm very familiar with the house, and I see the addition on the east side of the house that they're proposing.
Well, yeah, it's a little more involved than that. And we'll wait for Becky. But
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so we are trying to find common ground on the additions to 65 West Washington. We've done analysis in the area. I think one of the initial review from prospectus didn't like the windows. There were a number of comments. We went back, redesigned. My takeaway from that meeting was you just can't do anything to this house, which is unsettling and unfortunate. So I'm really trying to come back with a proposal that takes into account everybody's comments previously. We're reducing the massing. It's stepped down considerably, as you can see from that elevation. We're not adding windows to the existing front, which I still wish we could. I think that's a very blank facade that could use another window, but you know, ultimately heeding some of the comments of the board in this process. Originally we were manipulating the garage, which is in the rear yard setbacks, and then foolishly didn't recognize that that required a variance. Immediately, you know, took that off the table. But the reality is, it's like the massing of that garage, I think, may be one of the most troublesome thing about the existing house. You know, it's really unfortunate. Sorry for all the background noise here. This zooming. So really unfortunate, you know, that 3A6 there elevation. So, you know, just going in and trying to create the most attractive project that we could add to this village. And this is what we're coming up with. I think the comments about the massing, I think are a little bit tricky because there's, if you look around the village, and obviously done some soul searching since our last, you know, engagement on this project, that's what Chagrin is. I mean, it's like a big house next to a little house. You know, everybody on the board that's doing work in this village, and you've seen the projects, you know, you have like a $2 million house next to a $300,000 house. And I think if you kind of keep that in the back of your mind, this isn't such a groundbreaking or crazy ask. So I'm bringing all that up because we went around and documented, we created a 3D model to visually look at the two. Bill, we did the outline study of this next to the neighboring houses. You know, all of that effort brings us to this, and I'm happy to show you any of that exploration and analysis so that you can see why we've arrived here. But that's what I want to say. And I want to say, as long as each project is treated fairly and equitably, you know, I can't complain about it. There's big houses going up all over Chagrin, so it's hard for me to decide to just surrender and say this one isn't acceptable. I think it's really lovely. I think it's going to be really charming, and we have someone that's actually willing to restore the whole inside of this house that's been unfortunately cobbled. It's right there. You can see on 1A3 if you hang there. It's been cobbled up into a duplex on the inside. All the ceilings have been dropped to like 8'6" instead of, you know, 10 foot. And this client is willing to like go back in and tear that out and put in the big crown molding and all the things that, you know, were originally there. And I just hate to see that opportunity lost for Chagrin.
Well,
Maybe I've talked enough.
well, I would say that they've shown their
Sorry, I didn't realize it wasn't on.
They've shown their knowledge and interest in preserving architecture by the first submission, which is a total rebuild of this house. And I'm glad they're taking a different tact internally, but we're outside people. Our outside architecture is what we deal with here. Your quote, going to create a much more attractive project out of a house that can be done with the project. I think the basic tenet is this house has been added on to, it's hard to say exactly, but I think it's had 4 major additions over a long period of time. Some of them not very noteworthy, and that has nothing to do with you, but we're adding on yet again to, at its time, it was a grand house. The day it was built, it was a grand house for its time. And since then, it's been added on to be a grand house for its time several times. I think you're right when you say there's big houses next to little houses all over town, and there's houses that are too big and projects that should have been redirected all over town as well. But we're dealing with this house, and it's a substantial house already. And to try and figure out the best way to add to a house that doesn't need to be added to is kind of what I'm coming to. Nothing's really changed other than representing it to us. I don't really think anything's changed since the last time.
Not true, but
Well, not to any degree. But
Can you go over the changes and maybe touch on the existing and new square footage of the project?
yep. If you go back up to this, yeah, if we go page by page or whatever you want to do, we've dropped.
You want to start with the first
There you go.
elevation?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
there you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Great.
That, I think that, originally we had the wraparound porch, which I think aesthetically would be lovely, but, is losing some of the historic, the 100-year-old porch that's on the front there. We abandoned all of the windows in this far left side and are not touching either porch, even though, in my opinion, they're not designed well. So we're holding on to, history, and I appreciate that, but it's sometimes hard because, the entablature is not the right size, the overhang is bad, the crown details, all the things that Bill refers to in that Get Your House Right book, they're there. They were done 100 years ago, so we're going to hold them sacred. That's fine. We're heeding your recommendations on that, not doing it. We have the interior behind the screen porch is a wall that's remaining. We went back and forth on this second story. And we kept the original windows on that. And, for me, I think just trying to find the, the intent behind all of our village guidelines and ordinances, like the Secretary of Interior Standards, like we want to add on to this. We want to clearly demarcate what's new and what's old. But for me, fundamentally, I want this thing to feel very comfortable. I don't want to put a gable end, 3-story garage on this beautiful Italianate. So we pushed the piece. No, wait. The hipped and gable ends there on the right has been pushed back. I think 4 feet or something.
So that's 4 feet
This,
less long to the rear,
right.
except for the little projection off it.
Except for, yeah.
There's an additional 6-foot glassy.
Yeah. And honestly, that's to resolve roof, to better deal with the 3-car garage roof in not having that hip up so high. I also think it gives kind of a nod to the cupola, kind of structure that would be so appropriate for the Italianate. You can see it on the house across the street that's got a lot more detail and was clearly a much greater and richer design of its time, but still in the same era, right? That initial client had more money than this initial client. It's a lot more bedazzled. not a perfect architectural term, but you get the point. So you see from, that side elevation. And George, I think last meeting, you might have even said, you liked the way the side porch kind of pushes that 2-story element back, reduces the scale on 2A5, that we kind of carved out some of that for open air porch and then enclosed some for closed air porch. On the front, nothing, no, that's not true. We pulled this screen porch in, I think 18 inches or something from Water Street. Otherwise, that elevation is almost the exact same as it stands today. If you go down farther. So it's a conglomeration of, both iterations, I guess. I really like this bay. I think somebody did it, on the other Italianate house down the street on the alley. It's a good way to provide depth and relief on that elevation. And then on the back elevation where, the freeze board, your or Phil's comment for how to handle the roof line, which we dropped down even more. And then putting that freeze board on there, I think was a comment you guys made that was good. And then, yeah, changing the garage doors, changing the roof line, manipulating that alley elevation.
Becky, I think I really like where where your design has gone, and I understand that you may or may not disagree with the preservation part of this project, but you've shown, to my mind, a great effort to subjugate the addition, reduce it in scale, break it up in a way that is complementary but not overpowering the original structure. It's meeting the needs of, I think, the needs of your client, and fixing the mistake on the end where the garage is to my mind a nice solution to it's there, and you don't want to change it because it's a 3-car garage and it's useful and it's connected, but bringing that roof line down and hipping it and adding the bump out to sort of catch that and keep that hip from getting too tall is, to my mind, is just very well done. So.
Thanks, Phil. And the other comment I didn't say is on this 2A6 elevation, we took all the windows off of the existing on that as well. We had windows on each side of that fireplace.
Yeah, I like what you have respected the historic integrity of the original massing. I mean, that's definitely, I think that's a big improvement. Obviously helps the board look at this and not get caught up in that aspect of it. I think there's something that's not right in these two elevations. The roof coming over to that last projecting bay, it's actually bugging me, but the roofs don't coordinate between the side elevation and the rear elevation on those. In other words, the roof of that bay looks small on the rear elevation, but it actually is taller roof on the side elevations. There's something that's got to get reconciled there. But I think the approach to the side facing hipped mass, like doing something that goes sideways like that kind of mirrors the same thing that's happening on the main house, the loweredness, all of that works. I think it still needs to be shorter a little bit, so it's not, and I don't think that rear bay should be there, but so that it's not as big as long as the house. Now it's longer than the house, but I do think that the addition you're proposing, it does shorten the length of the mass of that garage. And that garage was way too long. It just looked like this giant long tail on that house. So I think coming beyond the line of the original 2-story addition does serve some purpose, but maybe it's still 4 feet too long. So it can just be a little smaller and be a little more secondary to the main house. And then if that back bay was there, I think actually the garage side and rear elevations don't quite mesh either, but so those are my comments. I mean, I think it's in the right direction. It's a little too big still when you just look at it from Water Street, but the approach you're using actually does improve some things, and I think it's a good approach.
I had a few comments. I think, Becky, you hit it right on the head when you said there's a large houses and small houses, and I've worked there for about 20 years, and one of the things I've observed is a lot of these additions going onto these houses, and everyone wants to move to Chagrin Falls because they want the feel, the nostalgia of having their kids walk to school or walking to the restaurants, and it's just that America utopia feel. But unfortunately, the problem is all these houses were kind of set up from a density. I'm talking a little bit more on urban fabric, not just architecture. We're set up on these small lots and these small houses, and everyone wants this lifestyle, so they come there and then they want to add 500, 1,000, 2,000. What's happened over the last 15 and 20 years with a lot of these houses, these additions, is you start to lose the original character, style, and massing of the house. And that's why, and this is a prominent house in the historic district, that when you add this addition on, you lose the main volume up at the front, which has already started to be lost. But to me, it seems like you're just adding more and it becomes like a train. So, and we've all been there. I mean, all of us architects have met clients and we sit down with them, and clients want from A to Z. And, you have to 9 times out of the 10, you say, that's not going to work, or this isn't going to work. And you either pass on the job or, it just, that happens all the time. I mean, you may interview for 50 jobs and only get 10, because you got to educate and teach the client so they know, not only, and this isn't just about these folks individual, but this affects the whole community and impacts the whole community. When you're coming down Water Street, you're going to see this long train of a house, and it really loses the initial massing of the Italianate architecture. So I feel like this really hasn't changed much from what you did before. So that's my comments. I'll say one more thing. I'll say one more thing too, is I think it's unfortunate that, and I've seen this not only here, but out of state, people buy houses and they have this, people have put in their minds that they can do this and they can do that and they can do this. And then what they really should do is have an architect go with them when they purchase a house to understand what they really can and can't do, because I've seen this multiple times where they get deceived and they think they can do all this stuff, and really they can't do half the things or a quarter of the things they think they can do.
Yeah, and I think that's a really tricky, you're hitting on a little bit of a sore subject, is that, they are, I don't know whether it's realtors telling them or they're just visually seeing what's happening and just thinking they can do the same. And you're saying A to Z. I think my client's at like an L, he'd be happy to have more. And I think that this is like a really reasonable response. And, I agree with you. I actually live, I work, and I have kids here. There's nobody that cares more about Chagrin than me. I probably have opinions about other projects that are going up, like we all have our own subjective outlook on projects. And I just think it's important, one, to do things that are historically sensitive, that honor, they're not like a glass box on the back of, a Western Reserve house or something in Chagrin, because I think that's jarring. If you look and, pull up a map of houses, Chagrin is riddled with very large and sometimes original, right? Like the house across the street. And I know you don't want me to reference that, but like that's a huge project that's happened. It's gorgeous. Everybody in Chagrin knows that house. They don't even see this house because they're so awestruck by that house, and then you go down the river, we've got Breeden's, you go down Church, you've got the Garlicks that just doubled the size of their house. Like, it's kind of all over Chagrin. And I'm even just looking and analyzing the quote unquote historic district that's now become like a thing. But if you walk up Summit Street and look what's happened there, if you go down North Street, I mean, these projects are happening everywhere. And it's just, I'm trying to reconcile, like, okay, if they're happening everywhere, this is charming. This is a good, attractive addition. And we're saying no. And to me, that just seems so random or subjective. Like, I just can't figure out why they can do it here. And
I don't think it's subjective to the degree that the real issue is the length of the addition versus the length on Water Street of the original house. And the fact that it's so prominently, the side elevation is the main elevation on Water Street. So I think the sensitivity is, and you're respecting the main house at this point in the design. That's important. But I mean, I think the sensitivity is that the Water Street elevation, it's not unrelieved, but what you're showing us there is longer than the original house. So if there was no little back bay and everything got compressed back to like 4 out of 5 of those porch bays,
so
all of a sudden it's just too long you dropped it, and that's good, but it's too long to feel subservient to the main form. And that's what I think Bill's trying to say, is that it's still overwhelming the main house.
Yeah,
So
if you look at the other elevation coming down Water Street, your back elevation, look how, keep going, let's see, like, if you look at, you see where you have outlined in blue, and then look how wide this is. I mean, it looks like, what is that, 40 foot or 36 foot? I mean, it's super wide there. And you're gonna feel that when you're coming down the street, how massed that is and how long it is. And the house you're referring across the street, I mean, that probably contextually fits because that lot's what, 150 wide or 200 feet wide. This is a 50-foot wide lot in the front.
but you're comparing the front elevation to the side lot line. That's not fair. Like, I'm not putting a 100-foot house on a 50-foot lot. I mean, you've
Right,
got to
how
look
long-
at this thing as it turns the corner, and the fact that it's got an alley separating it from another house, like, offers all this extra reprieve. I mean, we've got a landscape plan that's going to add depth and texture and make this more pedestrian friendly. And I think nobody's acknowledging some of these other factors. Like, there's long houses all over Chagrin, guys. I mean, we just did one Breeden down the hill, right? I mean, this is half as long as that. And just because I'm on this corner lot, it's being more heavily scrutinized. Well, look at every other corner lot of the historic district. They're not squares. I mean, the one across the street is a square, and it's a huge mass.
It's on a giant lot and it stands by
It's
itself.
it's a
And
huge.
it faces front in a different way. I don't think the front elevation of that house across the street is as long as this side elevation on Water Street. But it's much further from the street, and it has a lot of land around it.
Yeah, and
As
I
do
think,
the other
George,
projects
you
you're referencing.
I think, and I can pull up this 3D model if you want, but George, I think you know that cupola on the back, you know, is all the way back. You know, it's 12 foot back. Like, you're reading this as if it's just a flat, you know, if you
Well,
if you go to the
cupola, though,
original structure that's flat and harsh and brutal for a pedestrian, there's nothing friendly about the front half of the front half of the existing house. It's brutal, right? It's just a blank wall. If I brought that
It's
project
not
into
brutal.
you
I think
guys,
it's
We're talking about this house.
I am too. I am too,
Well,
Steve.
yes, at length. And I haven't heard any new information, maybe even today. The house has been built and rebuilt, and several large and not so well conceived additions have been inflicted on this house. And now you've done a masterful job of trying to create, trying to walk on water and make it a slightly bigger house that nobody can tell is a bigger house. If you walk down Water Street, you would think that the side elevation is the front of the house. Substantial change, and the question is, what is too much? And that's the summation of last time's decision was, this is just a little too much. Very well done, a little too much.
And I'm trying to quantify that. To me, the 5 bays of that porch are too much. I feel like the porch is 6 to 8 feet too long. I think the 5 windows that are ganged between the existing house and then the side facing hip, that's too long. I mean, it should be 3. And
No,
and I
it'll
think,
be too it'll be too squished.
or
You know,
or 4. I mean, if that thing slid back 4 feet and you didn't have that glass bay, I think all of a sudden this thing is. So I'm just trying to quantify it. Like the porch is 6 feet too long, but the mass is about 4 feet too long, and all of a sudden it'll start looking shorter than that house, and it's going to be a good thing.
But what
But now
about
it still looks equal to the main body of the house. It's doubling the house. The old one was only 2/3 as long as the house, and that's
tell me what you would
difference.
do with the garage, George, because you're not addressing that as part of your comments. I mean, to reduce that gable, I need to hip this. In order to hip this, I've got to
You
have
don't
something
need to build
project.
over it to make it. I mean, you're shortening it because you're still going further. Like even if you followed this, my suggestion, you're still going further than the existing addition. So you're shortening that thing. And then in terms of the roof, I mean, you could put a smaller roof over 2/3 of it and make half of it a flat roof. I mean, the other third a flat roof. I mean, you could play with it in different ways, but you don't need to build over it to make that thing a hip. And as I said, I'm looking at the drawing, and I actually don't believe your rear elevation and your side elevations marry in either the lower or the upper roof. They're not the same thing. They're not. So that would have to be reconciled anyway, because you've got a bump showing with a form that coming forward for the 2-car garage, and it's not reflected on the side elevations.
Okay, we are done designing this house today at this meeting. The question in my mind is, do we just vote on it, or do we do a revise and resubmit? I would prefer Becky to direct that.
Can I show you my screen?
I'm done designing this house today. That's not what we're here for. We've never gone round and round with any house that we have with this, and
Oh, come on, that's a terrible statement.
it could be an overstatement. Yes, I agree to you. I retract that statement. There's one or two in my 20 years that we've talked longer than this.
Steve, come on, that's just not reasonable. So you're telling me that every other big house in Chagrin went through less than 2 times? The thing up on Summit Street went
Well,
through just fine.
What I
The
said
thing on
was
the
that we're
alley
not gonna
down the
design
street.
this house today. We're not designing this house anymore today. Your skills are tremendous. You've shown us how good you are. I think you're trying to walk on water.
I just don't think this is so bad. You guys are like missing an opportunity. My client's going to walk away from this house and we're going to still be left with this ugly 3-car garage and bad Western Reserve edition on the back of it. And you have an opportunity here to like improve Chagrin. And you're just saying no. And you're not giving me good rationale. You're not thinking about some of these other things, and you're not taking into effect all of the other things in Chagrin. And it's quite frankly tough. I mean, this is an opportunity. Somebody's gonna throw $1 million into Chagrin, improving this house, and you're saying no.
I guess that's the question, whether another sizable addition on this house is an improvement.
Well, I do think that they should be allowed to do something above that garage somehow, because it's always been ugly and it looks like it's just been stuck on the back of that house.
And there's no other, this is like,
The house stops so abruptly and then there's that garage just jammed on the end. It's always been ugly.
It's really
And-
long.
I think
Yeah.
it's pretty, it's long, but George, that's how to solve this back garage and to deal with it in a hipped roof, which I think is a really clever, creative solution. That length that you're seeing that solves this whole garage bay is set back like 18 feet, and it's like 60 feet from the road. I mean-
I'm saying you're still making that 2-story addition too long and the garage a little too short, but it's just a matter of go back and tweak, and hopefully this client can make a room a little smaller, or do something that's a little, I mean, you never answered the question of what's the square footage of this proposed house.
We will see if she can reach that solution at another time. I move to revise and resubmit.
A second.
Motion by King, second by Childs. Lutz,
Can I ask a
Hi.
question? Can I ask a procedural
Sure.
question?
sure.
I'm sorry to interject, but it just has bearing on this. This has already gone to, it's submitted to BZA because I need to acquire a variance for improving this garage. Your revise and resubmit, how does that impact that next step?
You're still gonna proceed to BZA for the variances. And with the comments made from the board, they'll take the minutes of this meeting into consideration. And if any of the board members want to make comments in their motion to the BZA, now would be the time to do it.
I think we need to make sure all the minutes from the last 2 meetings are handed off to BZA so they kind of understand and follow the sequence. And
That's of paramount importance. Revise and
Those will
resubmit
be.
isn't a decision other than to see it again. So
I'd love for the BZA to listen to these comments. I think it would be helpful.
I think
When
it's on
and how-
Zoom. They can watch the whole damn meeting.
I think
When
it's
and
important
how-
that the motion includes the things that we think could be done to make this addition. And I think that will make a different motion than the last time this house came before us.
George, would you
Let's
hit
say
that
what we think
garage a
needs to be
different,
done.
George, would you hit that garage a different slope? Because I still want to know how you're thinking that's resolved. Because everybody agrees
There's
the
another
garage
way to do it
sucks.
besides building over it beyond shortening it. But I don't think the board has, I don't think that's a good discussion for today. I'd be happy to talk with you about it anytime though.
Carry on.
So I want to go back to the motion to revise and resubmit. Motion by King, second by Childs. Lutz,
Aye.
Well, before you do that, I just want to make sure you get the minutes in for the last two meetings with
We're
them.
revising it because we're going round and round as we should. And the reference to the last meeting minutes is very important here. We've discussed several things today.
Right.
Well, can we,
That
I mean,
are all in process. That's what
would any of
revise
you
and
agree
resubmit's about.
would you include any of the direction I was trying to give in the motion? Because I do think the BZA will understand this better. And a lot of times the motion is the main part of the meeting minutes.
It is for sure, but revise and resubmit was, we're not done hearing it. You're not done showing it. It's and because of the back and forth, we're designing it at a meeting, and that's why I'm revising and resubmitting.
Well, what I'm taking from this meeting, and I heard a lot of comments, that there's tremendous merit to the changes that Becky's proposing, but it still falls short of getting your full approval. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
I think it comes down to the massing, Jen. I mean, it's a
massing, yeah.
a major change, and you start to lose, like you see several of these houses over the years, they've been added and added onto. And I think you keep doing that, you're going to start losing the charm and the feel and the essence of Chagrin Falls. You keep doing this on every corner when these houses get bigger and bigger. And again, I know it comes down to that clients want, but you know, you can't, it's hard to live here and live in these houses without, you know, all these people want to make them so big and large and want all these rooms. But I mean, it's either we take a stand about architecture and keep the city intact, or try to, what's left of it, try to keep it the feel and look, or you just keep adding on to houses.
And I understand your point, but I think that the house is improved by having something over that garage, and everybody needs a garage. And there's just got to be a middle ground somewhere where they can get what they want and we can say it's okay. I hate to ask Becky to revise and resubmit, but I also don't want to kill this project.
Well, there's two things,
Agreed.
Jana.
Mhm.
One is that the drawings are not coordinated between the side and rear elevations. So what
Okay.
we're seeing doesn't
I heard you
make
say that.
sense. Secondly, quantitatively, if the main mass of the rear addition is shorter on the Water Street elevation, visually shorter, so significantly shorter, not a foot shorter, but like 6-8 feet shorter than the existing side elevation on Water Street, it will cease feeling like the house behind the house. And I think there's that moment. And I'm not saying it can't be longer than the existing addition, but there's somewhere in between that has to happen. And so that would be a quantitative yardstick.
I am going to ask to meet with you, because there's no other way to solve that garage in my mind. We either keep it a 3-story gable-ended garage, or you keep the same roof slope and you push that out to receive it. And that it's that simple. We can't shove this thing back 6 feet and have a hipped garage that doesn't go up into the eave of the second floor. Like, it's just not going to look good. We looked at this, and I'll show you all the ugly shit that, excuse my language, the ugly options
That's we can do that
2 days
offline.
ago, we had 2 inches, and it covered up all the soot, you know, all the dirty snow.
Who are we listening to?
So
We
back
need
to
to
your-
revise and resubmit. So we obviously have made mistakes in the past, and we don't want to build any more ugly shit. So let's revise and resubmit. I'm calling the question.
I second it. Is that what you're asking, Steve? A second?
Yes.
for revise and submit? Yes.
I think we already had it, actually.
Yeah, we
I'm
did.
Calling the
Mhm.
question, meaning Dominic needs to. We need to vote.
Okay. Motion, revise and resubmit. Motion by King, second by Childs. Lutz,
Aye.
Childs,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Thank you.
Last night, the guy came and put it in, and after half an hour, I said, well, how do you feel? You feel better? I'm thinking he's gonna feel better right away. And we
Hope
talked to
nobody
Kevin,
talks
they
dirty
said-
there.
Kevin said it takes 40.
89 North Main Street, Elite Sotheby's.
You fill in.
I have him muted. I just,
Oh, I didn't know if he clicked it. I didn't know if he did it.
he joined the meeting. I didn't know
I
he
think it's
wanted to
Harry.
see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please continue.
Okay. My name is Sam Kostuk. I'm with Signorama. We're the sign contractor for this project. We're proposing to install a small panel sign by the entrance door of the new Elite Sotheby's. Non-illuminated aluminum panel sign, then also a directory sign facing Main Street. As can be seen here, also non-illuminated aluminum construction.
So you're replacing the John Roberts studio sign?
We are not.
It's going underneath it.
Yes.
It's
Well,
gonna,
not exactly underneath it. It's going on the corner of the building.
It's right here. right?
it either needs to go on the sign or above the sign, because they measured underneath it, and the lowest point would only be, I think, 7 feet 6 inches, and then need at least 8 feet. So it's gotta, that's the lowest it can go, or it has to go above it for zoning.
I think the sign's a little boxy. Could you make it more of a panel sign rather than a box sticking out?
Box and a sign from a box?
It's like 6 inches wide coming out, projecting out, or am I misreading that?
It's projecting out over 24 inches.
It's projecting out 24 inches. It's
Is the sign blade 6 inches
12.
thick?
No, that is I think in this rendering, the mounting plate is 6 inches. It's hard to see because of the darkness of the color.
Oh,
So is
okay,
the sign the 2
But the
inches
sign, the
thick?
depth of the sign is only 3 inches.
3 inches.
okay, okay.
If it moves, it feels like it needs to move up, but I almost feel like it needs to be bigger if it moves up.
It can't be any bigger because of zoning. It's gotta be a 2 square foot directory sign.
And it can't
What
go
if you
to-
put the bracket above the John Roberts sign, but then arms came down so that the sign
Sign was
could be at its, current position, but suspended from above the John Roberts sign, not attached to the John Roberts sign.
We had actually gone through many different designs. One of them being more like a scroll bracket that hangs above the sign and the panel hangs underneath, and the
Mhm.
client rejected all those designs. They wanted to have a more high-end, slightly more modern look to the sign.
Maybe
that's why-
maybe a bracket that's not a scroll bracket, something that's more modern and geometric.
The spear,
Yeah, they just didn't like the whole panel hanging underneath. And I believe there was another sign or two that had a similar approach in this way, where it wasn't hanging underneath some sort of bar. Up and down Main Street, they had seen this and they wanted something similar.
I think the other problem the client was running into was their sign needs to go through corporate first, and they were getting a lot of pushback by corporate on some of their other designs that we had recommended.
So did corporate approve this?
Yes.
Yes.
It's small.
We agree, but according to zoning, this was we had actually submitted a larger sign, but it was shot down by zoning.
Well, and that's to the board. I mean, it's not going to be a big thing up there.
I'm
I
afraid.
hate to move it up. I hate to move it up at this size. I mean, it's just going to look odd if it's way up there.
I agree.
So maybe this is the best solution.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking too. I mean,
It's not offensive.
no.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's kind of too bad because it gets a little bit lost in the John Roberts sign. They're so similar, but
Yeah,
That's true, black on black.
and it also blends in, so not bad from our standpoint.
And there's also the sign on the
might be a little
back.
confusing, but I don't object to the design of it.
I'm sorry, Dominic, you were saying?
Oh, I was just mentioning there's also the sign on the back, on their main entrance on the alley side of the building next to their door. I just want to make sure you guys had comments on that too.
Mhm.
It's unobtrusive also. I mean, I would approve these myself. I mean,
I think so. think
Yeah, I
so.
agree.
Me too.
It's confusing, but appropriate.
Are you saying we're appropriately confused, Steve?
Well, I was for a long time because that bracket thing, I couldn't figure out what that box was, and it's just the bracket on the wall. So I moved to approve as presented.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Motion by King, second by Lutz. Childs,
Yes.
King,
Yes,
Lutz.
Yes.
that
Thank you.
was easy. Jeez.
Thank you.
Thank you. 293 North Cleveland Street, new dwelling. We have somebody on the way, do we?
I am Bill Gallagher,
Bill's here.
representing
Aaronville?
Tompkins. Hopefully you can hear me. I
Yes, we can.
Yes.
have too many pieces of equipment on and I'm getting feedback from myself, so excuse me.
Remind Bill, you got some plan review.
Lauren and Rodney, are you on tonight or this afternoon?
Morning.
I'm not sure I see them today.
I see Lauren Sonkin is on here.
Jeff Sockett's here too.
I am. I was muted.
Okay, that's fine.
Just some comments on this, just for you, Bill. We did receive a plan review response from RSA. I'll be sending those out to you after this meeting. And also the engineer is still writing up a response for, I believe, the drainage. So those are forthcoming here soon.
Dominic, thank you. We understand that. Just bear with me a second. I still can't get the feedback to stop, so I had to put
Can
the
we
second
see
computer on.
the home plan and the fourth elevation maybe while we're waiting?
Okay. We've looked at this design a number of meetings and really appreciate all the opportunity to discuss some of the changes. I could go through the whole thing, but I'm pretty confident this is exactly what the board has been asking for as far as the exterior and as far as the materials. And I take that back. The materials, we did submit a color palette also that is also actual samples were left at Village Hall for the board to see. The last comment, which was a major comment, is one more definition of what the materials were on the drawings. And we understand that. It was simply because we are still going through a process of evaluating and costing things out. And after some long discussions, and you can see because our last meeting was probably January, we came back with what was selected by the homeowners and wanted to present these. Now, that shake siding is actually white. I'm not sure why it shows up so taupe in this.
I think it's just the lighting of the picture.
Yeah, and then it's gotten some yellow. And the stone is also obviously a natural stone base that's going to be associated with that. We are putting in we are putting in the fiberglass windows. And one point of discussion, I'm sure we're going to have it, so I'll just bring it out. The homeowner is particularly the wife of the Sankin, Lauren, is very strongly opinionated that she wants the black windows. And we can go into those discussions later on, but I'm just telling you up front. Secondly, the roof design used to have a couple of gables on it, and we needed to do something to tie everything back together. We did change that out to a shed roof, and that was at the last meeting. And we have decided to go with a standing seam metal roof on that, and that's going to be complementary black color that is going to work with the windows. And on the side elevation, on the west elevation, the south elevation, we did put a standing seam metal roof over that small little projection to give it some continuity throughout the entire design. Rest of the house, the trim, garage doors, possibly in the front door. We haven't discussed that color, but everything else is going to be white. We're hoping that this is what the board's been hoping to see and been asking for, and I guess we're here to listen to your comments.
So the metal roof is only on that little shed roof thing
And the front facing dormer.
and the
Right.
facing dormer.
There's a shed roof on the front, and then there's a shed roof on the side.
I'll go first. My comments are, first, I'd like to thank you for taking all the time. And I know you've been here 2 or 3 times and tweaking and working with us. So I do appreciate you doing that. My only comment on this, because it's the front elevation, I thought it was pertinent, is you have a lot of field right here. And I think I brought this up at the last meeting. Is there any way you have all this distance here to either bring this roof down, and I'm going to try to draw this, so that you can put maybe like a beam here and a bracket and a bracket, so that it doesn't have all this height right here, or you try to put a small little hood over here to break up this facade, because it's an important facade, by just doing maybe a small bracket. If you could just do even a small roof that's out of copper that goes across here, comes down and has a bracket, so it breaks up that large mass of siding above. But other than that, I think it's nice job, and thank you for taking the time to do it. I know we're not supposed to talk about colors, but I'm personally not a fan of black windows. I know it's starting to get all over chagrin, but I kind of feel it's a fad, and that's just my other comment.
This house has, we use the term Pinterest house. It has all the elements of a Pinterest house. You should not put your address of your street on it. You should put the year, but you won't need to, because everybody will know that, oh yeah, that's what they did for 10 years back then. What is the mortar strike on the stone?
Well, because of the regularity of it, it's probably going to be raked. We haven't talked to those details. And you have to be realistic that the stone is showing for a distance of less than 12 to 14 inches. It's not going to be a prominent design aspect of the exterior.
I can see that, yeah.
And there'll be landscaping.
Absolutely.
It's blurry.
I agree. I think it's a pretty house. The glass is absolutely clear.
Low E, that's it. Have a little bit of tint to it.
No.
And yeah.
It'll have just it'll give it just a nice common look of what we did back then. And the house will be around for a very long time.
And this side facing gable still feels pretty wide to me. I guess that bay feels a little wide on that side, but it's certainly become much more consistent. And I mean,
It faces an equally long, not terribly articulated house next door on this side. And so I don't think there's a lot you can do with a house this big on a 60-foot lot. So, and it's not really even a 60-foot lot. So
I'd like to,
it's a much improved from the original presentation. I agree with Bill if there's something you could do to break up that space between the top of the garage doors and the roof line to give that some relief there. That would be beneficial.
Dominic, could you go to the north elevation, I'm sorry. I mean, your comments are great, and I'm not at all trying to minimize them, but in looking at that elevation, by projecting that roof and having the gutter board not align with the porch, honestly, it's bothersome to me. I understand what you're saying, or then we could step it. Okay, so then we step it, and then where's that awkward step happening at? It's going to happen somewhere in the middle of the garage door.
And you're going to stare at the end of it on the porch.
Even again, good point. And then it becomes a problem. I'd rather put something architectural up there instead of trying to project the overhang. I would say we can put a different freeze board up there, give more detail, or analyze something it's going to create more height, which is kind of fighting the horizontal look that we're trying to provide. But I'm not convinced that extension is going to help us. I think it's going to hurt us.
I think if you just I agree, maybe it doesn't make sense to make that this right here. Let me just annotate real quick. Instead of bringing this side elevation, bringing this down, maybe that is not the right answer, but maybe what you do is just to give that relief to that elevation, maybe you just do a simple little hood here with a beam, and then you put a bracket here. And even on the side elevation, it gives it a little charm and character. And then on the front, maybe this could be standing seam copper, and then you just put one on the front just to break up the siding. Again, it's just a thought. If it was anywhere else on the house, I don't think it'd be that big of an issue. But it's on the front elevation. It just seems like there's quite a bit of field there, is what we call it. Oops.
I would like to understand, I have low-E glass on a house, and I don't consider it tinted. I want to understand the glass better than I do right now.
the one that will look a little tinted is low-E 366, which is 3 layers of low-E. It starts looking a little darker. It performs a little better. The 272 has 2 layers of low-E and actually looks pretty clear.
Okay. And what is going on this house?
It's the low-E 270. It is not the deeper tinted window. It's not as if we're trying to. It's just that the low-E is not clear glass in my mind. I want to be very specific.
Yes. Thank you. The samples for the shakes are at Village Hall, but what are they? Is it a vinyl?
It's
shake?
vinyl.
Okay.
It's just
Siding,
vinyl.
vinyl siding, vinyl shake.
The design is well done. And would look very nice in town, but with the material selection, I think it's going to look like a plastic house.
We appreciate that comment. Our adjacent houses are vinyl. I think it fits well into the community, especially this neighborhood. I do know the owner has said to me over and over, they will consider it. And it all comes down to the cost. And unfortunately, that's one item that may add substantially to the cost of the house.
And I've
Do you have
seen-
do you have the window casings called out, and what are
Yes, we
they?
do. If you look on the one of the notes there, it's brake metal.
3.5
there's a
pre-finished. Okay, so you got aluminum
There it is.
wrapped, but
Right.
you have 3.5-inch trim.
Right.
Then what's the subsill? It does look like it's a subsill, which I'm glad about.
Yeah, the subsill is part of the window system. It is going to be aluminum wrap also, and obviously the windows are fiberglass.
So can it be like a sloping 2x aluminum wrap below? I mean, that's pretty typical aluminum wrap detail. 2 inches thick, 1.5 inches thick.
Yeah, right now we're not showing, it's more of a traditional design. We're not showing the skirting underneath it simply because there weren't more traditional design.
I don't mean an apron. I just mean the subsill itself. If it's aluminum wrapped, there should be something there that there shouldn't just be the bottom of the window. That will not read as I mean, your drawing actually shows a subsill, but I'm hoping it has a little presence.
I think
want it to be thick enough.
I think what George is saying, you know, when you do a sill, like in traditional houses, there's a little bit of slope here. There's usually a kerf or a drip right here. It goes back. It comes here. Usually this distance here, you know, from here to here is usually 1.5 to 2 inches. And again, it just kind of gives it the character and the feel of an older house. Isn't that what you're trying to describe, George? Okay.
Yep. And either a drip on the bottom or the bottom surface is sloping as well up a little, so it'll drip off. That's right.
Right.
I'll be honest, it's not shown like that, but I think that modification is simple and a minor one. I can detail that out and get that to the builder.
Thank you.
You're actually showing a traditional sill on your sections.
It is a traditional sill. It's just not detailed out as specific as what you're saying, and I'm afraid the builder will not read it the same way as we're discussing it.
It's pretty, yeah, no, if you would make that really clear, it's a pretty typical aluminum wrap detail. I don't think it's too tough to get in that context.
Yeah, in the worst case scenario, AZAC, I think, makes one that you can just buy pre-made, if I'm not mistaken. I just had one, and this is just a minor detail, is because it's the front elevation, but if you put mutton bars here like this, that lines up with the mullions and that, you see how that kind of reads as these mutton bars just kind of go around and come back down instead of just having a clear panel there? That might just kind of tie the composition of the door and the side lights and the transom together as one unit.
No, I think that was just an omission, because if you go to some of the other windows, even looking at the garage, there's muttons there. If you go back to some of the back elevation, I'm looking at them, and they can see we'd have muttons above the, not the north. I think that would be the, yeah, you can see we have muttons above that. So the intent is to have the muttons. I think that's just an oversight on the design.
Okay.
I think the exterior siding, I mean, the vinyl siding will read logically. So, I mean, I feel like the right thing's in the right place. I think vinyl siding in a new house is a little regrettable, but it's also on Cleveland Street based on the neighbors is consistent. So I think it's very difficult to force someone here to do something that's actually different from their neighbors. I'd say probably 80% aluminum and vinyl on Cleveland Street.
But you're endorsing perpetuation, so you're saying it's not quite what we want, but we'll let you go with this and perpetuate.
No, I'm saying that that
I-
I would be
I
very
see what
specific
you're
about the
saying.
street so that it doesn't look like a precedent for anywhere else.
My only concern when you do vinyl siding, first of all, it always should be smooth. It shouldn't be embossed because then it really looks fake. And when you're doing vinyl siding, especially when it comes around the casings and the corner boards, it's really imperative to make that detail work, because if not, people will just typically put what's called J channels, and then it really reads as just, you know, a house that has vinyl siding. So you know, you really should study, like, for example, even going up this rake here, is there going to be a J channel here, or is there really going to be a rake trim board here? So all those details create the feeling and the essence of the house and the overall composition. So it's really important to get those right. If not, then you spend all this money and all this time and effort, and then it's really the devil's in the details. You really got to get the details right. So if you do go this direction, I highly advise you to really think about all those details, because you only got one shot at it, and after that you're going to be looking at it for the next, you know, X amount of years.
We're actually here to approve certain things, and we don't need to advise. I mean, how will it be built?
Right.
I agree, Rodney. You can see there are corner boards at the corner. They're probably not as prominent as much as it's showing on the reverse shed dormer. Obviously, you can't see there is a rake board there because you do see that it's projected, and behind it, you can see the rake board at the gable that Bill was just showing. You'd see how it terminates down at the frieze. I agree with Bill. You don't want J channels at the terminations. We do have complete wraps around here, so that it is, in my opinion, appropriately detailed out.
So there are no J channels on this house.
I do not see any on the drawings. I can't imagine where they may terminate at. You can see there's freeze boards up there. It's going to terminate against the freeze boards. You can't see them because it's hidden behind the projected overhang. We do not have a
Speculation. I mean, these are plans, you know, we're trying to approve a house that's going to be built. And I guess I want to hear what the glass is going to look like, and I want to hear whether, you know, is it going to appear like a house on the cheap?
You're trying to go down to the details in the drawing set. I mean, is that what
Well,
you're
I'm trying to
asking?
hear what is the house going to be?
Let's look at the details in the drawing set if that's what you're looking for.
Can you go back to the wall section? I'm sure we don't have any details specifically showing what you're asking for.
There's a
on the
window
corner boards.
detail. I mean, it does cut through a window. It cuts, and then we do have a, I don't know if we have a rake projection shown. We do have a freeze board shown below the eave.
Right. And you do show that we don't have a horizontal soffit. We're basically cladding the underside of the rafters. And there may be a J trim there because you have to terminate it against the freeze board somehow.
That bracket looks, you've got a pre-finished aluminum soffit panel, which is not great, but, and then what is that bracket under?
Well, obviously it's a 5-pound that's called out, so it's a manufactured system. I don't have the product number identified. We can provide that, but
I don't remember where it is on the house.
It's that shed dormer,
Oh, I'm
two-story dormer that sticks out on the side, George, of the side elevation.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, there's a 6-inch projection on that side elevation, the west elevation, to break up that detail a little bit. And then we picked a manufactured product to trim it out a little bit better.
guess I'm looking for some confirmation from perhaps one of our architects on what is the installation going to be?
Installation.
These means of
Well,
the
vinyl
trim
siding
and-
can be done many ways, and some of it's just, not very appealing. And this is a cute house, but with materials involved treated wrongly and everything, it can end up being less cute than it should be. And
This is more treated in a typical way based on these drawings,
excuse
which
me.
means aluminum soffit. There would be a J bead on, or a, yeah, J bead on these, and as drawn. I mean, there's nothing showing. We're doing aluminum wrap trim, which doesn't allow for some of the trickier details with the siding. I mean, I would suggest with 3.5 inch trim that you actually get white J bead, and it kind of blends with the trim and makes it closer to 4.5 inches wide. That might actually look a little better than having it be color of the siding, unless they're the same color.
Whites will never be the same color. I understand what you're saying. So I think we're kind of fighting making that trim as prominent.
Bill,
And I understand. Yes.
Rodney, our builder, is on, but for some reason, nobody can hear him. Is there a way to allow him?
If he's in the participants chat, if you can hit the raise your hand function, Katie can bring him over.
Bless you.
Thank you.
I'll tell him to hit the raise your hand.
I think he did. He's been moved into the panelist board.
Oh, great.
Hello?
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hi, I'm Rodney, the builder. Can I chime in on a couple of those siding questions?
Please
Sure.
do.
Yeah, sure. That'd be
Yep.
great.
So when we do the wrap of the casing around the window, and I understood everything you were saying about the sill, and actually I heard Mr. Child speak about maybe a pre-made AZEK sill. That is definitely something I would look into as well. I'd like to try to use something like that for the sill, and I do understand the thickness you were talking about going to 1.5 inches. And as far as the casings around the window, you wouldn't see any type of J trim coming up to the casing. The casings would be bent, and the siding would tuck behind the casing, as well as going into the freeze board as well. You wouldn't see any J trim as far as that was concerned.
Great. If you can do that and use a 1x4 as a base and project that out beyond it and make maybe the dimension of that 4 4.25, it'll look even better.
You mean around the window?
Right.
The trim around the window is deeper than the siding itself. Like I say, it'll project out.
But I mean, the width might end up with that detail you're talking about, that little projecting trim nose that's going to pick up the soffit. Maybe you can make the overall dimension of that 4 4.25. And that would
Whatever
be
you guys decide as far as the width, whatever's on the plan will do.
well, I would think 4.25, 4.5 would be perfect. 3, 4, but anything over 4 is better than 3.5.
That's fine. A 4.25 would be fine.
Well, that's helpful because that is going to eliminate the J bead. Do we want to go make a motion for the project?
Well, I guess, do we know what the project is? Because we're waving our hands and verbally
No, I think
designing the house. And things have a way of slipping away, as we all know, when it's only.
Steve, I think that was very helpful to define those casing details.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he sounds like he's gonna try to eliminate the J channels, and you're gonna do a smooth siding, Rodney, so it looks like real siding. And
I'm not actually showing a smooth siding on there. It does have a texture. I don't know my options with the smooth, so I'm not going to say yay or nay to that at the moment.
okay, it'd be helpful because when it has that embossing, it looks fake. When you go up.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I'm just, I've never done the smooth. I don't
Okay.
know if, what I'm submitting has it. It's not that I wouldn't do it. I just don't want to answer that question at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, the house next door, which we're talking about things on the street, the house next door has a vinyl siding on it. It has a texture on it. It isn't smooth. We're not doing really anything too much different. We're actually going above and beyond what the house next door has. I know you guys are gonna limit things to Cleveland Street, which is great. But like I said, the house next door definitely doesn't have a smooth white siding on it as well. So I don't know if we'll have it, but I can definitely look into it.
Dominic, I brought some pictures of the house next door, 295. I don't know if it's part of the sample packet that we dropped off. I don't know if you can project those images.
Can I interject something? Because I don't, I'm not in the construction end of the business and haven't been for quite a while now. But it seems like the cost of aluminum, when you add the labor to do the kind of sophisticated bending and work that you're talking about, might be offset by switching to an AZAC combination for your casings and corner beads, because the AZAC makes a casing 1x5.5, 1x3.5 that has a built-in J channel to it,
Right.
to accept the siding. And by the time you get done with all this aluminum, it seems like it might be cost-effective to consider doing this stuff in AZAC, and then all of the details that we're talking about, building or duplicating a sill that AZAC already makes and already makes it with a J channel at the bottom to accept the bottom of accept the siding coming up. There's just all kinds of details that the industry is moving towards to try to get rid of J channels and simplify details, and we're moving away from aluminum because it's just combined with the labor, it's just really expensive. So it might be a consideration.
But he is basically saying he's going to make that stealth casing out of aluminum.
Yeah. And by the time you
which
get
is
done with
good.
that,
I mean, yeah, I agree with your comment.
Just for knowledge, there's not even a close comparison between AZAC and any other product. AZAC's a great product, probably one of the most expensive exterior products you can do in a project like this. Like I said, looking into the sill, it might be a great option, but as far as casing all the windows and doing corner boards in AZAC, at that point, I'd be putting hardy board on the whole house. AZAC is not going to be anywhere near in the same cost bracket as aluminum.
well, you're in the business and I'm not.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm just letting you know. I build, a handful of houses every year. I know my cost of AZAC and it hurts every time I buy it.
I don't understand the mystery of smooth. Seemed to me it would be a matter of ordering smooth or grain. Can you educate me on that?
Steve, I've never ordered smooth, so that's why I don't want to talk to it. I just have never done it.
Rodney, can you explain as a contractor why you prefer going with your textured surfacing versus smooth?
It's just, Bill, like I said, I've never used a smooth vinyl siding. I don't know if my my vendor who does my siding supplies and installations, you know, I don't know Provia, I don't know what they offer, I don't know what line it is. I've just never used it. So that's why I didn't want to speak to it.
I guess the comment is we can't evaluate that. If it comes in the same texture as smooth, that's a given. Dominic has just brought up the adjacent house that we're building next to. As you can see, some of the details on it are vinyl, and it's well detailed out. They do have rake boards. We're having rake boards. They do have their overhangs are following the rafter lines as ours. We're trying to be as contextual as possible. And this house has pretty much a large overhead void over its garage door. Again, I'm not saying we can't improve upon it, but in my opinion, that's not terrible looking.
Let me make a motion.
I can't formulate a motion in my mind that I will vote for.
Jana?
Sorry, I'm back.
We're looking for a motion.
Well, are we approving it depending on whether or not Rodney comes back with smooth siding?
No, and I'm gonna try and do this, I'm gonna try and do that. I think I can do this, and I think I can do that. I have trouble voting for that.
Well, it's not clear that there's smooth vinyl sidings available. You could say if available, we want smooth vinyl siding.
Well, Rodney, I'm gonna guess, this is speculation 100%. I think Rodney has a supply source that he's comfortable with and he uses it.
100% correct on that.
I mean, could we do a motion to approve the design, but maybe come back with the materials, or is that possible? Or to see if he can get that and make sure we understand all the rake trim boards and what he's actually using?
I would say this, that this house, you know, nothing can spend your money faster than your architect. They just spend your money like, you know what, through a goose. But there's a level that we strive for, and I don't give a damn about the neighbors. There's mistakes all over town, and this is this house and only this house. We're building this house on the cheap, quite frankly. That's what it sounds like to me. And you'll get your money back if you ever sell it, or in enjoying it when you have it. The reason we're stalled out without a motion is because evidently this house is not exciting anybody, and certainly not exciting me.
Respectfully, you're really insulting us. I have to be honest with you.
I'm sorry. I think you're building this house on the cheap, and it's going to look that way.
Well,
that is an insult. I'm sorry.
It's not a cheap house.
You know, I
Well,
looked at
you're using all the minimum materials to build it.
we looked at the board's regulations with regards, you know, what you're supposed to be reviewing and what you're regulating. And it does say 137.07B that, you know, you're supposed to regulate and make sure that we're using comparable materials to adjacent properties. And the two houses next to us, we're using and we're proposing to use the same materials that they use. In fact, the house on 295 was just approved in 2019 with no comments with regards to the materials. And that's, we're proposing to use the same materials, if not nicer, than the house to the right of us and to the left of us.
You're pricing us right off the street.
And it's, you know, we're proposing something in line with the board's purpose, which is by the code 137.07B. We're using compatible materials to existing structures to the left and right of us.
be the cutest and nicest house on the street.
Oh, the basic design is very nice. The only one comment is about the height of the garage door, and that's not I don't consider that a breaker.
So do you want to, we can make a motion to approve the design and just ask if they could just come back about the siding, if it's smooth or not, or just that last comment, and so they can get going, or?
Yes.
Let's do that.
Okay. So I make a motion to approve the design, and just if they could come back with us just to give us clarification. We'd love to see you do smooth, but if that's possible, versus the emboss.
Clarification of the installation ideas that were bannered around today.
Yeah. Do you have that comment? Or
Agreed. We
I mean,
can do that.
I'm fine with that. I'll start looking into it. As we were sitting here talking, I was just trying to get in touch with my siding contractor to find out about the smooth. You know, I personally feel that all the materials in the house, we want to use a high quality window, high quality front door, high quality garage doors. I'm sorry you don't like the vinyl, but you know, I've built the house for these people in the past and they're not a big fan of painting things over the years and replacing different pieces of siding. I just want to be comfortable on that street. So, but we will address the smooth issue, and I will confirm, you know, our installation techniques, and I'll confirm what we'll do on the sill as well.
Black windows are all the rage. We make that judgment house by house. And that's a consideration you should have if you're looking for us to. I second Bill's motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Childs, second by King. Lutz,
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Childs.
yes.
Okay, so that's approved with the comments regarding the siding installation. And that information will be given back to us.
Board, appreciate your time, your effort, and looking forward to a successful job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing like an easy little 4-person meeting, huh? Do we have walk-ins?
We still have one more,
Oh, I'm sorry.
60 Tartan Court.
Oh, yes, excuse me. Second floor addition, 60 Tartan Court.
And Becky, I sent you the plan review yesterday. It came in.
Yep.
Okay.
You guys have seen this before. It was approved. You've seen it twice before. This is the third time. You approved it on a preliminary basis last meeting, and we've essentially done no changes from that initial design. So
Black windows.
Are they black windows?
Move to approve.
We should ask that question.
Did I hear a motion or a suggestion?
That was a suggestion.
Okay,
Hey, Becky, the windows, are they black or white?
they're white, Harry.
Okay.
thank you.
I think I might make them red just for fun.
Yeah, we need a longer meeting. Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion
I
by
would've-
King, second by Childs. Lutz,
Aye.
King,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky.
Now, do we have any walk-ins? I see one hand raised.
There is a hand raised?
Yes,
Yeah, it's just taking a minute. I see it. It's going. It's just not going fast.
I know. I'm just letting everybody else know.
So I'm here, Donna Mintz.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I am proposing some replacement windows at 126 May Court. And in the past, if I'm keeping the same size, the same color, the same operation, and the same grid pattern, the projects have been administratively approved. And as I understand, there has been many projects that did not conform, and so it's creating a problem for Architectural Board of Review because the administrative approvals are no longer effective. And so I am working on the house at 126 May Court. And I don't know if, I did email the windows we're replacing and then some of the other homes we've done. The windows are original and we are replacing them with a vinyl, high quality vinyl window manufactured by Soffit in Streetsboro. They're top of the line window. And it's going to certainly add to the energy efficiency of the home, the beauty of the home, and be an option that this family is very comfortable with.
You have pictures of the house or the
I
window? or anything?
do, and I'm not sure. I did send them to Harry and Dominic, so I will bring them up. It's I have it on my screen right now. And I can email it to somebody. I'm not sure how I can get you to see them. So is that possible that Harry could put it on his screen or Dominic?
Yeah, I'm looking for right now.
Okay, it was sent on an email last.
It's in the folder, Dominic.
Oh, is it? Okay.
$3:15 meeting.
Yep, that's the one. So I've circled the windows that we're replacing. And
More hot coffee too.
You want, okay. You want coffee too. All right, you know what? I'll wait for a little while to bring you some juice from water.
and then these are homes that were done with the vinyl windows.
These last two are not in,
They're in
this green
Shaker
one and
Heights.
this red one are not in Chagrin Falls.
Yeah, they're on Broxton in Shaker Heights. We've done many houses with the vinyl windows. I was just trying to show homes that have, I mean, Shaker Heights is also, very particular about the look of their homes, and they don't have any problem with our window or our installation. We pride ourselves in doing an aesthetically pleasing job with very, very close attention to detail. And we've gotten many nice reviews and accolades for our work.
So are you the homeowner, the architect, or the contractor, or?
I am the business owner. We do the windows. So I purchase the windows, I install the windows, and I, have, consults with the customer to determine what products and styles we're going to use.
And these windows are originally, are these wood, or what are the materials?
These are string and pulley windows, wood windows.
Okay. I think what would be important is to know the width of the sash and the height of the lock rail. if it's consistent with this window, I think it'd be good to submit the specifications so that we can actually see the window. Does the vinyl window have a miter joint or a butted joint when it?
It's a miter joint.
Okay. Does the original have miter or they're butted, correct?
The wood windows, I believe those,
Yeah, they're probably butted. I guess, I don't know, Harry, does this house need a historic significance report?
This
It
one
was
had
the-
one done in 2014.
Okay, I mean, was it the same idea of putting vinyl windows in here? Did they have?
Now, they added an addition on the back.
Oh, I mean, I would suggest, is that protocol to have the prospectus do a historical report to see if this has an adverse effect or not on this home? I don't know how old this house is.
Are you familiar with where May Court is also? May Court is really tucked away in a very quaint little, it's not on any like walking street front. A lot of you can't even, and I'm not saying that you put in something that isn't appropriate because it can't be seen. That's not where I'm going. It's just, this is such a huge improvement for the draftiness of the home. It's a young family, and they are looking to do something while their children, are young, to keep the house, energy efficient and affordable for what they, see as an appropriate budget for this project. There are so many vinyl windows in the village, in homes that are, historically significant.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I totally agree with you on everything you said. I just think we should do the same protocol we've done for every other applicant that's come before us. And if that, does that warrant,
Well,
Dominic and Harry?
I'm just saying, we've never had to do this before for windows. This is the only time that when I am keeping the same size, the same color, the same operation, there has never been a time that I've had to go before the ABR. So, the precedent has always been that those, the window to replace your windows was, you're using the same opening. You're really not changing anything. You're just adding to the efficiency, the energy efficiency of the home, and you're making the windows operable. These windows don't even operate. They stick. This is going to add to the functional ease of the home and, make it just more livable, more enjoyable. And they're going to be beautiful.
Sure, I totally agree with everything
Most of
you're
the
saying.
houses, this is the May Court extension. May Court is an L-shaped street. It goes down, takes right into what's not really a cul-de-sac. It just ends there. I've owned two houses on May Court, and I own the one across the street, more or less across the street. Replacing the window with exactly the same thing is put you into a repair category in terms of window replacement. Donna and I talked on the phone 4 or 5 days ago, I guess. She was surprised having to go before ABR. You noted a house, an 1859 house that you didn't have to go before us.
Right.
And you put in the exact same windows, and then you described them as different than what was there. So that's why we go before ABR, so we can help you decide what is the same window.
Well, see, yeah, so 25 East Cottage Street was, I sent all my information in saying, do I have to go before the board, before the ABR? And I was told no, and I clearly stated the windows are the same size, but the grid pattern and the color is changing. And I got the permit administratively.
Well, the code is a little more strict than that. And this time you're going through protocol. That is the reason you go before ABR, so that we can review it.
You're right.
With a little more expertise.
Of course.
Vinyl windows are flimsier in nature, so they're often built with thicker stock and therefore have a different appearance, hence child's comments on, okay, what exactly are you presenting? And because that's not clear. You showed us what the house looks like, but not where we're going. I agree that an update from prospectus would probably be in order. We don't normally approve vinyl windows because of their drawbacks. Their main attribute is cost usually, which is nice, but we don't dispute that they need new windows. I think most of the houses in the street were built around 1929. So I'm assuming it's in the ballpark. That addition, from what I just heard, that addition has 5-year-old windows, 6-year-old windows. So
There's about 4 windows were not.
oh, I see. Okay.
I
So the
believe-
addition windows aren't being replaced, just those on the main house. Our goal is to have a cute house like that remain cute house like that. That's our goal.
We do that.
Okay. I move to revise and resubmit, reaching out to prospective.
There's no motion. She's just walking in for
That's right.
instruction.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you could give us your specifications and let us look at what the actual window, like how tall is the sashes and like how thick's the lock rail and what it looks like.
So would you like me to deliver a sample to the building department?
You could do that, or don't they have drawings? Like I'm assuming they have
Sure.
specifications of what the window,
Yes.
but
The
yeah, even
specific-
looking at the product.
Yeah, I
The
can.
specific window. Yeah.
Yeah, but what's going to be put in here?
And Donna is on the agenda for the March 15th meeting for this, so we can get the HSR updated. And she can bring any of those drawings and submit that stuff to us.
Okay.
Right, and I was discussing this on March 9th, I'm sorry, February 9th. And, I was not expecting this turn of events. And so then, of course, March 9th was the deadline to turn everything in for the March 1st meeting. If there's any way that I could to wait till March 15th, it would be preferable to present at the March 1st meeting.
The real hang up on that would be to get a hold of perspectives and have them do their HSR reports. I need to give them.
But we already have that HSR report, right?
And the board said that they would like an updated HSR pertaining to the window specifically, as the HSR that was done at the time was more focused on the addition, and there aren't comments on the window.
I would put this forth because you'll be a walk-in at that meeting, if there's room for you at that meeting. And that's 2 weeks, 14th, 15th today, and that's first. So perhaps prospectus, especially given that it's an update, could be ready to go. We cannot take official action with you because we can't add on after the starting gun goes off. We can't do that. We can absolutely give you our thoughts and have you feel comfortable with where we're going, I would say, if we have all the information.
Okay.
So Dominic, she's first in line for walk-ins on the 1st, and reach out to prospectus and get the information to show on the road.
Will do.
Good. All righty. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other, or you want to ask if there's any other walk-ins?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't see any other walk-ins.
Yep. Gee, that was easy. Okay.
Policies and procedures.
Steve, do you want to make any notes on how you want to go about length of the meetings or submissions?
Yes, for general knowledge, while we're on the airways, we had a combined meeting with BZA and Architectural Board of Review. I attempted to curtail some of the longer discussions because the meetings are too long. And people need to have the time to have their say, to gather their information from us. The meetings are running very long, and we're going to curtail them if it's going, we're not having 3.5 hour meetings anymore. Maybe I should look at my watch. So we'll be saying things, as I tried to say today, about we're not designing your house today. We're going to give you our input and answer your questions, and you will design it and come back. And the number of applicants will be limited because we just can't have 12 applicants and have it run until noon. That's not what we're set up for. And so in the future, there will be a little bit of a change. Working on call it a checklist to help architects and homeowners to know. We bumped up against that this morning to know, well, this is what we like. This is what looks good. This is what fits in chagrin, and watch out for this. Please do not do that, because it's disheartening and expensive for people to spend a lot of money on an architect to have the plans not going anywhere, and they never were going anywhere. The onus is somewhat on the architect, a lot on the architect, but people try to do things that don't fit our code. And remember, we have opinions, but mainly we have the code. We act on the code than anything else. Okay. Any input?
I think that was well said, Steve.
Okay. We'll adjourn the meeting then. Thank you all. Thank you all.
And Steve, you want to start that 2-hour limit on March 1st meeting in person?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it'll be a guesstimated, time frame, of course. Yes. Which is why I told Donna she is probably going to be a walk-in, but if we don't have time for a walk-in, the walk-in doesn't fly.
Got it.
All righty. Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.